Today is about growth. This conversation is around the start of the alphabet for growth. So we thought we'd, to quote The Sound of Music, start at the very beginning. A is for ambition, or should it be for aspiration, perhaps? So we brought together the founders of 4 either high growth or high potential growth businesses to talk about how quickly you can drive growth, how ambitious you should be for growth in these startup businesses. So we've got Damian Kimmelman, founder and CEO of DueDil, Alicia Navarro, co-founder and CEO of Skimlinks, Rohan Silva, the co-founder of Second Home, entrepreneur in residence at Index Ventures, founder of Tech City. We've just heard how you've been evangelising Tech City. I don't suppose you have any time for hobbies. Quite a long list of things there. And Emily Brooke, founder and CEO of Blaze. So thank you all very much for coming to talk to us. So when we start to talk, Damian, maybe we can start with you. When we start to talk about the pace of growth that new businesses can hope for, what did you set out to achieve, and are you on track?
I think the pace of growth in Europe is not as much as the pace of growth in San Francisco. I think it largely has to do with competition for venture funding. There's just not the same type of competition. However, that can be a good thing and a bad thing, and I don't necessarily think that that's important. What I think is important is an attitudinal shift, which I think is there in London. And it's that you can create billion-dollar companies in London. You can create world-changing companies. And with that, a lot, what I've seen, and I don't know if you guys have seen this, but a lot of East Coast VC firms who get sort of shoved out of the West Coast deals see an arbitrage opportunity in London because they get much better valuations. So a lot of them are coming over
to pick up something in London instead. I mean, Rohan, do you recognise some of those concerns around funding? Is that something that you must hear a lot?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was historically, the UK had a real issue with what I think people call friends, family, fools money, the first bit of risk capital into a company. And so one of the things we did in government was create incredibly generous tax breaks for that kind of angel investment. I think the most generous anywhere in the world. And the thinking there was that it would enable people to get that first 50 grand, £250,000 to start a company. And the great thing about the internet age is it often costs much less to start a company than it used to and reach a global market. And what we're starting to see now are lots of new venture capital firms opening up. And I think Damian's absolutely right. Ambitious venture capital goes hand in glove with ambitious entrepreneurs. Because it's only with that risk capital that you can really shoot for the moon and really go for growth. And I think it's a really exciting trend right now in London.
Alicia, have you found, at Skimlinks, have you found that access to capital, has that been something that's held back your growth, or have you grown despite it?
I think that the first thing is if your market is international, if you don't see yourself as international, you're not setting yourself up for success. So from day one, our business was international, in fact, mostly in the US. So we spend a lot of our time there, and half of our VCs and most of our VC money is from the US, and will probably continue to be. I think that, I don't know, the fact that we are UK headquartered does not mean that we are a British exclusive company. I think we're British born, but an international mindset. And so for me, I mean, VC money has not been any more difficult than it is for anyone else to get, because we're just constantly on a plane and traveling and building relationships everywhere where there's customers and where there's money.
Yeah, I mean, Emily, you're at the beginning of starting your business, aren't you? I mean, how are you tackling the question of growth? How are you managing to fund it? Has funding been an obstacle?
It is, especially talking from a hardware perspective. So I have a hardware startup, and the working capital required to get physical product to many people is a huge challenge. I mean, we have to pay for our product, pay for our inventory, our manufacturing.
Because yours is a product, it's a gadget that goes on a cyclist helmet
on the handlebars.
On the handlebars to tackle the blind spot.
So yeah, it tackles the greatest cause of fatality, which is being caught in the blind spot, and it's a front-facing light that also has a laser, and it projects the symbol of a bike just in front of you onto the road. so it prevents vehicles turning across you.
It's really cool.
I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, this has been a crazy journey. It's a university project, and 2 years later we're shipping around the world, and we've raised VC money, which is, I think, quite interesting in the fact that we're a hardware startup, and now for the first time VCs are starting to look at hardware as a legitimate investment. We did a Kickstarter, so we were one of the first UK companies to do a Kickstarter, which is a fantastic experience and kind of proof of concept. But capital, yeah, it's a different landscape, and it's changing very rapidly for hardware specifically, if I could talk about that.
So your type of business, do you, when you look at your growth trajectory, do you go now to try and sort of tackle that difficult second album with another product, or do you just try and work on as much global domination for the first? That's
a topic of conversation right now. So we have a portfolio of products. We have about 6 others that we're working on. There's plenty of challenges for urban cyclists, from bike security to helmets to all sorts. But ultimately, we have a really cool launch product, and that's what we're going to be known for to begin with. I've made the decision very recently to calm down a little bit and start running off in many different directions and actually execute this incredibly well. And for that, it is international development. So looking at other territories abroad.
We just played some clips earlier on of some of the conversations I was having with entrepreneurs in the run-up to this summit, and that message about narrowing down your offering,
keep your message,
working out exactly what it is you do, came through so many times, and so many people having learned through experience that actually they were trying to tackle way too much.
Tackle one problem.
Growth, but the right growth.
I got advice from Rich Reed of Innocent Smoothies a couple of weeks ago, and he kind of said, he was asking about the roadmap, and I talked about all these different things we wanted to work on, and he disagreed and said, look, when we were starting the company, there's another soft drink company that launched at the same time that we tracked, or is his personal hobby to track, and they're now worth whatever X factorial of innocent where they sold to Coke, and that's Red Bull. It's a one-product company. You can be known for one thing in a consumer's eye, so first of all, we want to execute the laser light really well.
Okay. Well, just to Alicia's point that we were hearing earlier, we're here talking about growth. We're in London. We're talking about UK growth, but London is a world city, and you just have to listen to the accents on the panel and the accents that will appear in the room as we go through the day to work that out. I mean, it's a slightly false conversation, really, to have a conversation about tech with borders, because it doesn't have any, does it? So I suppose, is that one of the things you need to think about as a startup here, is set your sights internationally right from the start? I
think it's absolutely right, and I think also, one of the brilliant things about London, and why I'm fundamentally massively optimistic about London's growth, is that technology these days is not so much just about technology, it's about how technology bumps into other fields and other sectors, and London is an amazing place for that kind of cross-fertilisation, because it is a world centre also of finance and politics, and which isn't always great, and retail and advertising and so on. And I think it's that interplay between different fields as well as different countries that is really the wellspring of creativity. And I think one of the things that's really important about events like this, and also what government can do, is convene different people. The fintech, for example, the way that new technology is transforming the financial services sector, London is far and away the world leader in that field, and it's because Tech City is cheek by jowl with the city, and so you're constantly having conversations.
Well, that's always what's interested me about this. These comments you get, and I've heard them before from entrepreneurs about there isn't enough money going into startups in the UK, and you think, well, how is that possible when there's a city that's been at the centre of the financial services industry, namely London, right here? How is it possible? And one entrepreneur recently told me that he thinks that investors in the city just don't understand enough the world of tech to spot opportunities and to know what's going on. Is that true? Is that changing?
I think it's just the attitude that it's this can be a billion-dollar business easily. If Spanx can be a billion-dollar business, pretty much anything can be a billion-dollar business.
What have you got against Spanx?
Nothing against Spanx. I think it's a great business, but everybody's like, oh, that's not a. I think the attitude needs to change. Anything can be a billion-dollar business. It's just looking at it in the right context. And I think London has some phenomenal characteristics that Silicon Valley really doesn't have. So we have a huge design. We're a huge design center, and if you look
they've got Apple. They make some mean designs.
I think that's different. We have fashion, we have design, we have the Cambridge, we have Silicon. there's so many. We also have aerospace technologies, and people don't think about how many opportunities they have that are so close to them.
Do you think entrepreneurs in this country are ambitious enough? Because one of the criticisms I've heard in recent months levelled at entrepreneurs in the UK is maybe they are too quick to sell out. They reach a certain level of success and then somebody comes with deep pockets and offers to buy them, and they think, well, thank you very much, I've always fancied a yacht, and off they go. I mean, Alicia, is that something you recognise in other entrepreneurs you speak to or think about at all? You're just too busy right there at the coalface of the day-to-day?
I think if you start a company planning how you're going to sell it, it's not a really fun journey then. And I think it's undeniable that there are less opportunities for acquisition if you're here, but I do think that that's changing, and that there is a greater mentality, particularly in the big US companies, that there are bargains and good, not bargains, but good companies to be picked up elsewhere. It goes back to my previous point that if you just stay isolated in one country, I don't think that's the way to build a great company, as long as your product is obviously internationally usable. I don't know, the entrepreneurs I know are all mighty ambitious. I think it's just a numbers game, and there's probably just a lot more companies in the US at the moment, but that's easily and on the way to being rectified.
Rohan, what do you tell the Prime Minister about, or what did you tell the Prime Minister about level of ambition that you experienced around Tech City?
Well, I think there are these theories that there are cultural factors at work, that the British class system might encourage people to sell out and buy that country house, as you say. I don't buy any of that at all. I think that entrepreneurs the world over are the same. They are tenacious and resilient, but they also respond rationally to the incentives around them. So in the 1970s, Britain had an 83% rate of income tax and a 15% rate of tax on unearned income. And guess what? We had 700,000 businesses in the UK. In the 1980s, I think you've heard from Lord Young, there was big changes on tax, and by the end of the 1980s, we were up to 3 million businesses. Today, we're at 5 million businesses, and there were more businesses started in the UK last year than any year in British history. That is entrepreneurs responding rationally to the incentives around them. And I think, there are still rules, like the way that entrepreneur relief changes at £10 million, that are potentially prompting entrepreneurs to sell earlier than they perhaps could. And also, we were talking about ambitious venture capital. I think, what US style venture capital, and there are some great funds in London that have that attitude, do, is they, at certain points, they allow entrepreneurs to take a bit of money out of the company. Because, you might be 5-10 years into a company, it's worth a lot of money on paper, but you're still kind of slightly, you're living like I am, in a rented basement flat. Not that my company's worth anything.
Eating baked beans.
Eating baked beans.
Yeah.
And actually, suddenly the pressure then is to sell, because you want to have some assets. So, I think that venture capital also plays a big role, but ultimately it's about entrepreneurs responding to the signals around them.
And in defence, sorry, yes.
I was going to say, I think it's a really interesting point, because we could have at one stage chosen to flip our company to be based in the US, and I was actually out there for 3 years setting up the US office. And I made the decision to move back to London, and I also, and that was driven by many reasons, but we've also stayed headquartered in the UK, and that's where most of our team are. And there's many reasons for it, but some of them are that the systems and policies in place in the UK make it really, really attractive, particularly for hiring. My US employees will pay an enormous amount of tax if and when we sell, because their options are going to be taxed at a huge rate. My UK-based employees will probably only pay 10% because they now qualify for entrepreneurs relief as well on their EMI options, and that's awesome. That is fantastic. It's already proven to be a great selling point. We now, because we have the license to be able to recruit international people, it's a hiring aid for us to bring US people to London, and also people from all over Europe, rather than them going to the US to work. We've also got the benefit of Entrepreneurs Relief, we've got the R&D tax credits, we've got the ability to hire from all over Europe. We've got 21 different nationalities in my company of 60 people. And I don't think you get that anywhere else in the world.
my next question here, or my last question is running out of time, is what do we need to change to help UK companies? But it sounds like we've done the positives, so let's have the what needs to change part. What needs to be, because Rowan, you were working on some of those things that Alicia was talking about.
Thank
there.
you.
So, yeah, thank you from her. But other ideas.
I say hiring is still a huge challenge. I mean, there's been so much great work which has been done towards it, but getting the talent to come and work for a small company is incredibly challenging. And I think is encouraging incredibly talented graduates to go and work for a small company. I was at Oxford for a while, and my friends who stuck it out they're all in the city, getting great salaries and paying for a great flat somewhere, but are miserable as hell, and are kind of so excited I'm off on this crazy journey and starting a company, and can I come along for the ride? And my COO I've just hired was I stole him from the city, and he's brilliant. He's fantastic. And now his friends are also leaving and coming to look for startups and joining my friends' startups. But that needs to happen more. There needs to be the top talent of the UK needs to go look to help grow the small companies.
So when Lord Young was telling us that young people in schools today want to be entrepreneurs, maybe we haven't quite
not
seen
just
that.
Not just. I mean, there's a lot of work being done to kind of incentivise people to start a company as an entrepreneur first, but also go and work for one.
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually do. I mean, I'm a big advocate of that. I think there's a lot to be said for. I started a little bit later, my company a little bit later, so I'm a huge advocate of having a great life experience in your 20s and then starting one after that. But I'm a huge advocate of people working for startups because you learn so much. And I think Sherry actually told me that the rate of growth and learning that you have in the first few years of working in a fast-growing startup is orders of magnitude greater than anywhere else.
Yep.
Damian, 5 seconds on one thing you should be at the top of the list.
I think the government's done an incredible job over the last few years, and people don't understand how good a job they've done at reversing some of this tension. I think the last hurdles are really what Sherry and Joanna Shields have gone on to do, which is to really fix the public markets, so companies going into
can go and list.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you all very much. I'm sorry that's all they have time for on that conversation. But Emily, Alicia, Damian, and Rowan, thank you very much for your time.